Walls are usually built to keep things out. But these walls weren't made to protect cities from invaders or to fend off enemies. These walls were built for the opposite reason: to trap, to restrain, to confine. From sprawling stone enclosures hidden deep in the wilderness to huge modern barricades made to imprison danger, these are 15 walls built to keep something in, not out. Number 15. The flood walls of New Orleans pumping stations. New Orleans is famous for music, food, and resilience, but beneath that culture sits a city locked in constant war with its own geography. Most of New Orleans lies below sea level, wedged between Lake Pontchartrain, the Mississippi River, and the Gulf of Mexico. Water doesn't drain here, it accumulates, and when storms hit, the city doesn't just flood from outside, it floods from inside. That's why some of the most vital structures aren't just levees or berms, but hardened flood walls built around pumping stations. These thick, reinforced concrete walls trap the city's own floodwaters inside the drainage network until they can be pumped out. Look at Pumping Station, number 6 near the 17th Street Canal, made infamous during Hurricane Katrina. It's surrounded by 15-foot-high concrete walls with deep steel pilings forming a box around the facility. These walls hold back big volumes of runoff during storms. Unlike perimeter levees, these are inward-facing, lined with access ports, gates, and engineered for failure isolation. Number 14. The wall around Goli Otok. In the Adriatic Sea is an island that looks like any other Croatian outpost. It's rocky, sun-baked, and bare. But Goli Otok, meaning barren island, carries a legacy of fear. Through the mid-20th century, it was a prison camp under Yugoslavia, not for criminals but political dissenters. The island was ringed by a wall that wasn't just physical, it was psychological, ideological, and terrifyingly effective at keeping one thing in: unapproved belief. Goli Otok wasn't marked on tourist maps, and no public records confirmed what went on in the 1950s and 60s. The goal was re-education, mainly of communists who supported Stalin after Tito's 1948 break with Moscow. There are no trials, appeals, or sentence length. People vanished into it. Inmates endured starvation, sun exposure, freezing, and brutal labor. Worse were the forced betrayals. Prisoners were made to interrogate and punish each other. The wall wasn't just stone, it fractured trust. And when Yugoslavia fell, the island was abandoned. Its walls now crumble, but its scars remain. Number 13. The Fence of Woomera. In the middle of Australia's Red Desert is a place that rejects the idea of openness, and it's called the Woomera Prohibited Area, in short, WPA. It covers over 122,000 square kilometers and is larger than most countries. Though no single wall surrounds it, Woomera's boundaries are real, enforced, and immovable. This might be the world's largest containment zone ever created by a democracy. It wasn't made to keep people out, it was built to hold weapons, wreckage, radiation, and classified tech. Established in 1947 through a military partnership between Australia and the UK, it served as a testing range far from population centers. Missiles, rockets, and even nuclear-capable systems were launched here in total secrecy. Woomera's walls aren't built from concrete, they're made of red tape, no-fly zones, and restricted access. Within the WPA are smaller fence sites like the Blue Streak Missile Zone. Others store chemical or rocket waste too dangerous to recover. This boundary isn't a relic. It's still active, and it still keeps the ghosts of history from escaping. Number 12. The Gardens by the Bay Biodome. Singapore's skyline dominates the view, but just south of Marina Bay, something else catches the eye. We're talking about something curved, gleaming, and entirely transparent. These aren't malls or high-rises. They're biodome walls. The massive glass structures form gardens by the bay's cloud forest and flower dome. Unlike traditional walls that keep nature outside, these were built to seal it in. The dome stands 58 meters tall, spans 1.2 hectares, and shelters a living mountain blanketed in orchids, ferns, and plants from the misty cloud forests of Southeast Asia, Central and South America. The outer shell includes 4,500 double-glazed glass panels supported by steel ribs and a chilled concrete base. Every panel was engineered not for style but containment. Inside, cold air flows through ducts beneath walkways, while waterfalls and misting nozzles release fog every 2 hours. If this wall cracked or systems failed, humidity would crash and dozens of species would start dying. These aren't greenhouses, they're sealed simulations, holding fragile ecosystems back from disappearing completely. Number 11. The Great Wall of the Hanford Site. Along the Columbia River in southeast Washington state lies a stretch of land half the size of Rhode Island, one of the most contaminated places in the U.S. This is the Hanford Site. It looks like dry desert scrub, but underground, it stores the deadliest waste ever created on American soil. Built in 1943 for the Manhattan Project, Hanford produced the plutonium used in the Nagasaki bomb. After the war, the site grew into a massive complex of 9 reactors and processing plants. For decades, radioactive byproducts were dumped into tanks, trenches, and rivers. Now a multi-layered containment system acts as a wall, not just concrete and steel, but policy, fencing, surveillance, and restricted airspace. At its core are 177 tanks holding over 50 million gallons of toxic sludge. Many are corroding. Some have leaked. Efforts to vitrify the waste into glass blocks are ongoing, but failure here wouldn't explode. It would seep, slowly poisoning soil, air, and water. Hanford's wall isn't ancient, it's urgently alive and amazing. Number 10. The biofence of Pirbright Institute. In the Surrey Hills of England, tucked between farmland and hedgerows, sits a facility most people have never heard of, but it's vital to British agriculture. The Pirbright Institute is a high-level research center focused on infectious animal diseases. Like Plum Island, it studies fast-spreading pathogens, particularly foot and mouth disease. In 2001, the UK's FMD outbreak led to 6 million animals being slaughtered, costing billions and leaving deep scars. Pirbright houses biosafety level 3 and 4 labs, among the most secure in the world. Inside, scientists work on African swine fever, blue tongue virus, and evolving FMD strains. Its defense system includes a steel outer fence, sealed labs with negative air pressure, HEPA-filtered ventilation, UV decontamination, chemical sterilization, and total waste control. Entry and exit require full-body suits and double decontamination. Even wastewater is chemically treated and heat sterilized. In 2007, an FMD strain leaked, traced not to the lab but a broken pipe connected to a commercial vaccine facility. That breach forced a total overhaul in biosecurity systems. Number 9. The perimeter wall of Rikers Island. In the East River between Queens and the Bronx sits Rikers Island, one of the most infamous and heavily fortified islands in the United States. Technically part of New York City, Rikers operates like a sealed-off world built solely to contain, not to shield or protect, but to confine, isolate, and control. Its defining feature isn't the buildings or fencing, it's the perimeter wall, a structure designed to hold people in. Literally, it's a patchwork of high concrete barriers, steel fences, guard towers, and razor-wired barricades. Some walls reach 20 feet high, reinforced with anti-vehicle trenches, spotlights, patrol roads, and surveillance spaced meters apart. The shoreline wall is the last line of defense, reinforced over decades, not just to contain inmates but to prevent the island itself from eroding. Built on landfill, Rikers depends on its perimeter to hold land in place. Escapes are rare but not impossible. The wall has been tested, and every attempt led to more height, more concrete, and more quiet reinforcement. Number 8. The exclusion zone wall of Chernobyl. At 1:23 a.m. on April 26, 1986, Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. The disaster was worsened by human arrogance, flawed design, and bureaucratic delay. Radioactive material surged skyward and swept across Europe. While fallout moved outward, Soviet authorities scrambled to draw a boundary inward, a containment wall. That became the Chernobyl exclusion zone, a haunting perimeter about 19 miles wide. Within hours, the nearby city of Pripyat was evacuated. But this wall didn't stay fixed. It grew and shrank as scientists mapped contamination zones. Plutonium, cesium-137, and strontium-90 settled unevenly, complicating everything. Despite the boundary, nature crept back. Plants returned. So did animals, even people illegally. Some elderly villagers called self-settlers moved back into abandoned homes. Chernobyl's wall exists in layers: physical fences, psychological trauma, and at the center an immense concrete sarcophagus built not to bury the dead but to trap the invisible killer that remains. You can't see this wall, you can't touch it, but it still holds silent and radioactive. Number 7. The perimeter walls of the Netherlands. The Netherlands is known for windmills, tulips, and canals, but its most vital structures are its walls. Not to keep out enemies or trespassers, but to hold back something much older: the sea. Nearly a third of Dutch land sits below sea level. Cities, farms, and entire regions exist where water once ruled. Their secret? A vast network of dikes, levees, embankments, and flood barriers, designed not for military defense, but survival. These walls are the reason reclaimed land, polders, exists at all. A polder forms when water is pumped out and sealed behind a wall. Without it, the land reverts to sea. Take the Beemster polder, established in the 17th century by draining a lake with windmills. It's surrounded by a 40-kilometer dike, holding 3 meters of ocean at bay. Multiply that by thousands. Over 3,500 polders and 22,000 kilometers of water barriers protect the country. These aren't relics, they're active defenses. If the walls collapse, the Netherlands doesn't flood, it disappears. Alright guys, now let's head over to number 6. The Binhai New Area Landfill Wall. On the coast of Tianjin, China, a massive retaining wall rises over 60 feet tall, not to stop an invasion, but to hold in something far more corrosive: garbage. The Binhai New Area Landfill handles over 10,000 tons of waste every day. That includes municipal trash, industrial solvents, and chemical sludge. The landfill wasn't originally designed for this scale, but as China's cities grew, so did the garbage. And what lies beneath isn't just waste. It's heat, gas, liquid, and decay in motion. The retaining wall was reinforced with clay layers, compacted stone foundations, and geomembrane linings to prevent toxic leachate from escaping. Beneath it, pressure builds. At the core, temperatures reach 70 degrees. Gas vents and flaring towers relieve pressure. But if a gas pocket shifts or seals crack, the landfill could liquefy and collapse. In 2015, a similar failure in Shenzhen killed 73. This wall isn't symbolic, it doesn't represent power or pride. It holds back a slow-burning mistake, one that can't be unmade. Number 5. The Wall of San Quentin State Prison. North of San Francisco, where fog rolls over the bay, sits one of America's oldest and most notorious prisons, San Quentin. Its most defining feature isn't a tower or gate. It's the wall. Solid, unyielding, and permanent. Built in 1852, San Quentin was designed not to block outside threats, but to hold the most dangerous men inside. Over time, it evolved into California's most high-security facility, home to death row and lifers. Unlike newer prisons with layered fences, San Quentin relies on one massive stone boundary. The wall isn't just physical, it's symbolic. It separates inmates from society, turning time into limbo. In the 1970s-80s, political unrest surged inside. Inmates like George Jackson of the Black Guerrilla family spread manifestos from behind its walls. When Jackson was killed during an escape attempt in 1971, the prison doubled security. More fences, more concrete. Even executions happened behind sealed doors. Today, rehab programs and podcasts exist, but the wall still holds. It listens, but never forgets. Number 4. The Slag Heap Containment Walls of Iron Mountain, near Reading. Iron Mountain's rust-colored slopes hide one of the most toxic legacies of American mining. Once rich in copper, zinc, silver, and gold, it was heavily mined through the 20th century, but exposing pyrite to oxygen and water triggered acid mine drainage, a chemical reaction that creates sulfuric acid and dissolves heavy metals like lead, cadmium, and arsenic. Even after the mines closed in 1963, the chemical chain reaction continued and worsened. The pH levels reached 3.6, more acidic than battery acid. To stop it from spreading, engineers built massive slag heap containment walls made of compacted earth, synthetic liners, concrete channels, and filtering beds. These walls trap the ongoing chemical assault, but they don't stop it. Iron Mountain still produces poison. The containment system just manages it. Maintenance must continue for 3,000 years. This isn't just cleanup. It's containment of a man-made wound that keeps bleeding. These walls don't protect a community. They quarantine a catastrophe. Number 3. The containment wall of the Aceto mine. Beneath Lower Saxony, Germany, lies the Aceto mine, which is a former salt cavern turned radioactive waste dump. Originally used for mining, then scientific experiments, it was later repurposed to store nuclear waste between 1967 and 1978. More than 125,000 barrels of contaminated material, plutonium, cesium, strontium, were placed deep inside. At the time, salt mines were believed to be geologically stable. They weren't. By the 1980s, brine water began seeping into the chambers, threatening to contact the radioactive waste. Water and radiation don't mix. Leaks could taint groundwater, posing a threat to millions. In 2009, German authorities admitted the site wasn't safe. Plans began to extract the waste, a process that could take decades. But in the meantime, engineers built a containment wall to halt water flow. It isn't permanent, it's a stopgap. Retrieval will cost billions and take years. Every day, locals live with the risk. They can't see the wall, but they rely on it, because if it fails, the land becomes poisoned. Number 2. The dike walls of the Salton Sea. In the southeastern California desert, the Salton Sea looks almost peaceful, wide, still, and glittering. But this lake only exists because of an accident. In 1905, a failed irrigation project redirected the Colorado River, flooding the basin for nearly 2 years. What was once dry desert became a lake, but now it's dying. The surrounding dikes, massive compacted earth structures, reinforced with riprap and steel, are the only things holding its toxic waters in place. Built to protect nearby farms and wildlife refuges, the walls now divide poisoned water from towns and crops. For decades, the lake has been fed by agricultural runoff laced with pesticides, fertilizers, and animal waste. It's now saltier than the ocean. Fish die en masse. Birds sicken. And as water evaporates, chemical-laced dust rises from the exposed lake bed. Draining it isn't an option, it would unleash a toxic dust bowl. That's why containment is the only plan. Build more dikes, segment the lake, and hold the poison exactly where it is. Alright, let's end this with Number 1. The biosecurity wall of Plum Island. Off the northeast tip of Long Island sits Plum Island, an 840-acre government-owned site most Americans have never visited but probably should know about. Home to the Plum Island Animal Disease Center, it holds one of the most secure biological containment zones in the Western Hemisphere. There are no medieval walls here, but its barriers are among the most vital ever built, not to keep intruders out, but to keep something far worse in. Founded in 1954 during the Cold War, the center was created by the U.S. Department of Agriculture as a frontline defense against foreign animal diseases, mainly foot and mouth disease, one of the most infectious livestock pathogens. A microscopic droplet could wipe out entire herds and collapse agricultural systems. U.S. law prohibits FMD research on the mainland. Plum Island was chosen because the surrounding ocean adds a natural layer of isolation. This island is essentially a biological penitentiary. The inmates are microscopic. and their escape would trigger one of the largest disasters imaginable. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.